All right, welcome to the Evolving Potential Podcast. I'm here with Big David Niethe, mental performance coach, public speaker, seminar leader, corporate coach, a little bit of everything from national champions to world champions, UFC Fighter Israel Adesanya, pro golfer Lydia Ko, focusing mostly with mental performance, not mental health, not mental wellness, but mental performance. So thank you for joining me, Dave. I'm excited to have you. Things that we're going to really focus on will be self-doubt and overcoming limiting beliefs to really push forward and get the most out of yourself. I'm really interested in how you got started with this whole thing, because I know that our paths are very similar, where I just loved personal development. I started getting into it for my own development to improve my status in life, if you will. And it just took me for hold. It was just like book after book after book. And then I'm starting to share ideas with people and they're starting to get a lot of value out of it. Like, maybe I can make a career out of this. I feel like your path is pretty similar. So why don't you share that with us?
I think the difference, though, mate, is you're only young. I'm 55 now. Well, how I got into it was originally through doing strongman, and so I was on the New Zealand strongman circuit here in New Zealand, and one of the decisions that I was pretty clear on was that I wasn't going to jab my ass with some stuff. So I obviously wasn't going to be one of those guys too saying it was unfair because everyone was taking something. So I went and looked at what the Russians were doing. Ironically, they were doing some really good stuff. But I came across some of their work on hypnosis, and so I sort of I went into researching hypnosis, and from there I backed into NLP. And this is going back, this is probably back in 1995, possibly earlier. And like you, it just evolved. I became really obsessed about, reading books, etc. What started happening is during the strongman, the guys were, I loved training with a group of guys that were really push limits, and they used to call me Staffy because I sink my teeth into something. I don't want to let go, right? And the guys were starting to ask me questions about, mentally, how do you do this, and so that's how it evolved for me. Now, you got to appreciate at this stage, I'm a guy who's dyslexic. I left school with no qualifications. So reading for me in of itself was a real challenge. And I was a printer at this stage, miserable in a job. I didn't really know what the hell I was going to do with my life. But I loved the gym. I loved the strongman. Well, funny enough, it just sort of started evolving parallel with my training, was the mental side of things. And you've got to appreciate there wasn't a lot out there. I mean, mental performance in sport specifically, there was no such thing as mental performance coaching. Back in the days, in the 90s and the 80s, there were probably doctors or psychs, but no one really sort of, the specialization in the realm of performance was probably conducted by a coach, do you know what I mean, who had some experience. Read a few books, whatever. So the industry itself in mental performance was pretty raw. There wasn't a lot out there, but I knew that there was a need for it. And I was lucky enough to have some people, obviously the biggest influence for me or support for me was my wife. And I had a dream. I had a dream about making this a career for me. In fact, I'm going to show you something because...
Yeah.
One of the things that I get all my clients to do is to have a clear vision, right? Something that represents the person that you want to become. So back in 1995, I don't know if you can see that okay, I drew a picture. I drew a picture of me on stage,
Nice.
You got to appreciate one of my biggest fears. One of my biggest fears was public speaking. So I used to shit myself, right? I didn't want to do it. But I knew it was something that was going to be a requirement as I evolved with this business. And as Carl Jung said, where fear lies, that's where you need to focus. So I redesigned my whole life, man. And I made a lot of mistakes, but I'll tell you, I had a whole lot of people. I remember walking up the corridor of my printing place where I was working. And you got to appreciate, I'm not a very good printer. I'm on minimum wage and like $7 an hour, right? And the production manager says to me, "Hey, Dave, what's this bullshit about you leaving to do this psychology thing? Son, you only just need to pass your apprenticeship," right? It's implying I was too dumb and thick to do it. And far out for me, that really stimulated me to, I love revenge. I think it's a great help.
Chip on the shoulder.
Yeah, to really get yourself motivated. And I remember I pretty much taught myself through just hard work how to read and write again, pretty much. Do you know what I mean?
Jeez.
Overcoming that, because I remember I used to spend, I managed to get off the printing press into a sales job temporarily while I was still working on this and growing the business. So I was working a full-time job and at night, either studying or working with a client.
Yeah, that's me right now.
Yeah, man. And I'd spend a shitload of time in the library and I read a shitload of books. Through that, I remember I managed to get, because it was still a new industry, in the 90s, it was life coaching, right? So I kind of went into life coaching.
Yeah.
And I worked with a number of people there. Like I said, I went into looking into hypnosis, NLP. I've done a multitude of different courses. And, it started to evolve. And I can still remember the day where I left the full-time job at the printing place for the last time, mate, to start this new job. And so I work out of a garage. I work from home. This is my office here. And it was tough. It was tough in the first few years because, mental performance wasn't a thing really, and I built the business, and I'm really proud to say that, we're coming over 30 years now. I've helped develop world number ones, Olympic medalists, Commonwealth medalists, world champs, national champs. It's kind of humbling, man. It blows your mind when you sort of reflect, on what you can do. But I think the important thing here is, I had a clear vision, man, and you have to have a tenacious resolve. There were plenty of times when the money wasn't really coming in. I remember when I first started, Joe's mum and dad used to pop in, and I used to get excited because they'd bring cans of baked beans, because we really struggled just to even put food in our mouths. Do you know what I mean? Because, going from a printer to doing mental performance, it was fucking hard, man. But I was fucking determined, and here I am today. I have a waiting list and an international clientele, and I have a wonderful life.
It's crazy.
I'm proud of what I've created, man.
So I love metaphors, and you gave a really great metaphor in an interview that I watched that I'd love for you to touch on, because you talked about the importance of keeping that clarity around your vision and some of the things that can happen to not get that clarity. So you talked about like a crystal ball. Like, would you be willing to share that little metaphor with us?
Yeah, that crystal ball scenario is based around, it's based around the self-image. So with every individual, we have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. Now, the self-image is like a crystal bowl, crystal clear water in it. And through that water, you can see your vision and your goals, right? And so one of the key things that I talk about is protect yourself at all times. So we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And a lot of us are not really conscious of those thoughts. They just roll around. But if we're not conscious of it, just imagine that of those thoughts, 60 to 80,000 of them, some of them contribute and some of them contaminate, right? But if you're not consciously aware, imagine every negative thought like a little bit of dye, insignificant. So you drop a little bit of dye in that crystal clear bowl and it's insignificant. But over a period of time, imagine if you had 20,000 thoughts a day that were negative. Very soon you lose sight of that vision. So the gatekeeper is conscious awareness. And so that helps to protect the self-image, because when that becomes clogged or stained, you can't see your, that's where you lose sight of your purpose. You lose sight of your motivation. You start to contaminate yourself. And so a lot of it is about being consciously aware of what is the story you're telling yourself. You know, the other thing that I work on with clients too is, I don't know if it's probably across the spectrum worldwide, but you know, we're told that it's important to be humble and to be gracious and whatnot. But I think for high performance athletes, that also it's important for them to be proud, and it's important for them to be selfish. Because sometimes, you know, in high performance, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. You're going to have to look at what is most important. And you can't afford to have too much distraction, because it will rob you of your attention. So it's a tough one, man. I mean, you know, when you have a clear vision, it allows you to navigate your way through life and allowing people to say no, because one of the most important resources is time. And people always want to rob you of time. I have become very structured and selfish in a positive way, because immediately when you say the word selfish, internally, what do you think? That's a bad thing.
Negative. Yeah.
That's really negative. But the realization is no. That's supporting self. Now, there is selfish in the sense where, let's just say, you don't help people in need when you know that you can, for instance. But there are a time and a place where you've got to say, hey, listen, I've got to say no, I can't, because I've got to focus. You've got to make sacrifices. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? The old saying, what's done in the dark will shine in the light. You know, you've got to be focused, you know. And sometimes that's backed up with that tenacious resolve where you feel very comfortable in saying, no, I won't be doing that. People won't say to you, hey, listen, we're going out to a party tonight, 10 o'clock. I'm going home to bed. The party's just starting. And people go, why are you leaving? I'm going, mate, because I've got to be up tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, so it's about putting yourself first. You know, I think it's important that if you want to be a high performance athlete, there is a time and place where you have to put yourself first and feel comfortable with that. It means that you have to be a little bit, I think the word we use is selfish, but it's self-serving, because you're absolutely aligning your intentions with your attention. Because the bottom line is we behave our way to success. So the key to that behavior is consistency. So, you know, things happen in life, and there are times where you may have a championship coming up and something serious could happen, and an auntie might pass and there's a funeral. That means you have to travel and blah, blah, blah. You know, sometimes you've got to be selfish and going, oh, hang on. I know, as an example, Arnold talked about this. You know, his dad died, but he had the Olympia and he focused on the Olympia. So I think that when you have clarity of your purpose and your vision, it allows you to make really good decisions in the sense that you're not allowing anything to contaminate your commitment and conviction to realizing that vision.
I love that. I love that. I have my own metaphor that comes to mind when I think of this topic as well. And you know how when you get into the car and you put in GPS in your phone, it gives you the fastest route to get to the place.
Yeah.
And if you don't have GPS plugged in and you take a wrong turn, you don't even know. You just continue on driving. If you have the GPS plugged in, you take that wrong turn, it tells you immediately, like, hey, you took a wrong turn. Hey, you just added 5 minutes here. You know, take this.
I just end up swearing at whoever that voice is on the phone.
Right?
What?
So,
Come on, man.
Do you have any insight on how you were able to keep that vision clear?
Well, I think it's about self-awareness, and it's about, when you have I think that the best formula that I've found actually was from a hypnotherapist back in the day. I think his name was Charles Tibbetts, an American guy, but he came up with a formula called BICE, and I think this is brilliant. So
I haven't heard of it.
BICE stands for belief plus imagination plus conviction plus expectation equals results. Nice. So when you have an undoubtable belief in self, when you can clearly visualize what it is you want, you have a conviction which allows you to say no to people, a conviction in your behavior, and you expect a result. Fuck, you'll be a hard competitor to go up against.
Yeah. Dang. That's a really good one. So I know when I took my NLP course, it was very powerful for me personally. I went into my NLP course very intellectually, and I fully, expected to nail down the material. I studied, my ass off. I got there and I was not ready to be on the patient side of things, if you will, or client side of things, I should say, And so as we're going through these experiences, as we're going through the hypnosis, as we're going through the timeline therapy, whatever, like I was struggling to find that place where like, what's your subconscious telling you? I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm sitting here trying to think about it, And so I'm curious, since I haven't talked to a lot of other people that have gone through, neurolinguistic programming, I'm curious what your own personal development experience was from going through that, from having to like come face to face with your own limiting beliefs and things like that. Like, was it hard for you? Yeah. Was it, was it fun?
It wasn't hard for me. I think you got to appreciate that I'd already done a series of courses beforehand before I even went into NLP. I went into NLP, and I'll tell you now, as a practitioner of NLP or master practitioner, I use parts of NLP. I use parts of hypnosis. I have blended a multitude of different modalities. I'm not one-dimensional NLP. I think there's parts of NLP that I use, other parts, can you imagine the last thing I want to do is stop smoking hypnosis? Oh, fuck that. That's not my client. I don't want to do the freaking, how do you feel about your past shit? Fuck that. I want to take out what I need for allowing an athlete to move forward. Do you know what I mean? So I don't use a whole lot of NLP, just certain little things that I feel work combined with other stuff that I've developed over 30 odd years, So I'm not one-dimensional in that sense. But my experience when I went there was purely to ignite the curiosity that I had. So it wasn't hard for me because I'd already done a lot of years of coaching beforehand. When I say 1995, I think I started earlier than that when I started working with my first coach. So we're probably going back even further than that. So I think I was savvy enough because with respect to practitioners of NLP or the teachers of NLP, they were more interested in selling the next sort of program than the next level. And I was really fucking staunch, and I'm a stubborn fucker. I just wanted the information and fuck off. I wasn't interested in teaching NLP. Again, because that bores the fuck out of me. What I love is the challenge of each individual that comes in to see me as a puzzle, right? And as long as a client comes in with an open mind and a sense of curiosity, fuck, we can take them to a whole different level. So I'll use different things, man.
Yeah, and being kind of open-minded about discovering what those narratives and limiting beliefs are. And so I know that those are something, even if you discovered it years before you went to NLP, you had your own process of coming to a self-awareness and realizing you had some own limiting beliefs going on.
Yes, I had the number one limiting belief for me, and again, a lot of so here's the important thing I think we need to appreciate, and in explaining a belief in essence is something I hope is true. That sort of defines what a belief is. And so you have beliefs, and then how I explain it, it's sort of like we have values and beliefs, right? Values are a preference times a priority, right? So they're like a belief on steroids, right? So you can imagine that you're going to have a value, and that generally will have a structure like a pyramid almost, where you'll have your key values, and then they'll spread out because there's tens of thousands of different things that we can value, right? But there's a value hierarchy. Now, in that value hierarchy, connected to and supporting those values are belief systems. So sometimes if you want to make change, it's not so much working at the belief level as it is about changing values. Yeah. So again, you'll have fighting and family. Okay. Now, traditionally, I have certain beliefs that support those values, and sometimes we need to be able to change them around. For a lot of fighters that have come from very strong family orientated, there could be something at an unconscious level that can contaminate their continuation. And then when you identify that as a limiting belief, you can say, well, listen, let's change the value structure here. Winning a title, how will that and there's a conflict with, say, family and winning a title, and all that's involved in that, because you got to travel, you get away from family, you feel guilty about that. You've all your life been taught value of family is number one. So I for a moment, I allow them to give themselves permission to swap it around or move it down a little bit, and in doing so, like I was referring to earlier, was allowing them to align their values with the behavior that allows them to achieve what they want. And so being selfish is okay in this context because it's going to impact on the family in a positive way when you win. You know what I mean? There's an outcome here that can really affect the family in a massive way. But it's not all the time that I have to deal with that, but it's sort of, there are times when you have to sort of help people understand, the last thing you want at a deep level is a sense of guilt and hopping on a plane and going to camp for 2 months before a fight.
Yeah.
You are going to feel it, but you've got to be able to really be consciously present in every fucking moment in that camp to ensure probability and possibility. And so if you're carrying all this guilt or whatever, that can potentially sabotage the self-image. Do you know what I mean? And it's sort of like, well, we can arrange it so you can talk to your family, but I'm going to give myself permission to be upfront, clear, present in my training because I've got an absolute sense of purpose. Nothing else is going to contaminate my important, you know what I mean? Whatever sport it is. It's all scalable and it's all applicable.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about this too, is even for like public speaking, what we're going into, and someone becoming a coach, someone, leveling up in life, someone trying to become their absolute best self. It's like all of that is completely universal.
When you're thinking, I think I think the other thing that's really important is I've always been curious. I think that's one of the most important attributes to have. I am definitely an existentialist. I'm not a religious person. I believe in existence. And I believe from that for me, I have, how we talk about structuring certain beliefs that sort of support the behavior that we want in moving forward in life. I truly believe, for me, out of respect for the men and women that gave their lives for our freedom, all of us has a responsibility to be the best we can be and all we can be. And if everyone had that attitude, this world would be a better place.
And so how would you recommend someone could develop their curiosity about maybe themselves to improve their own self-awareness?
Yeah. Well, see, that's the interesting thing. So how do I improve my curiosity about myself? Well, surely if you truly valued yourself, it shouldn't be something that I need to develop, as it is a fucking requirement. Remember, go back to that premise, which is out of respect for the men and women who gave their lives for our freedom, we have a responsibility to be the best we can be and all we can be. Now, for those that choose not to, fuck them. You stay in your miserable fucking world. Fuck you. Do you know what I mean? I value life. And I think that, people like that, and again, we talk about protect yourself at all times. People that are contaminators, fuck, I cut them off real quick, man. I don't allow anyone to come into my life to fucking shit on it. I mean, you think about this. If someone went into your house as a guest, pulled their pants down and had a shat in your lounge, you are not going to go, oh gosh, that's really not appropriate. You're going to beat the fuck out, get them to clean that shit and never come back again. So, you can understand that one of the most important things is who the fuck are you hanging out with?
Huge.
You hang out with losers, and we've seen this in clinical studies. You get a lethargic rat and you put it into a cage of hyperactive rats, very soon it will become hyperactive. Take a hyperactive rat, put it in the cage of lethargic rats, very soon it will become lethargic. So one of the key things is you may not be incredibly motivated or curious, but take some responsibility to look around and go, well, where can I go where at least I could be possibly challenged? Or for me, it was, where does fear lie? What's the biggest fear most people have is public speaking. Yeah,
it's huge.
Dying is number 2. Fuck me. I would rather be in the coffin than talk at someone's funeral, right? So I think that there's something incredibly refreshing having an honest conversation with yourself and going, where are your fears? Now, for me, there were three basic things. I went to a very tough school here in New Zealand, tough environment, and it has a reputation. It's a place called Wesley College, right? This is back in the 80s, so this is freaking tough. Hidings, bullying, etc. Now, the first thing that started me on this journey was the bullying. Now, I was a skinny little white kid and a very dominated with a lot of Maori and South Pacific Islanders, and these kids at 15 are bearded, muscly, they're massive, right? Man. And I'm just this little kid. I used to get beaten up, right? And I'll tell you a story. We used to get postage, and my uncle used to send me cookies. And every time they said, oh, Niethe, parcel at lunchtime, you go up and get your parcel. And I knew, everyone used to get excited about I used to shit myself because I knew that everyone, guys up there knew what the fuck was in that parcel and I was going to be a target. I never got to eat those fucking farm-baked cookies. And I remember a situation, and it came to a head, where a guy grabbed my cookies, and I remember making this decision. You know what? I've had enough of this. So I'm going to make a promise to myself. I've got to act, right? I've got to overcome this fear, because I'll tell you, man, I'd wet myself. I was so fucking scared. I'm a little 13-year-old with hasn't even got a pube yet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I made this decision, and these guys are big. And I remember I hit him. Hit him straight in the jaw.
Oh my gosh.
Mate, it was like a mosquito bite. The fuck? You just hit me? Boom, boom, boom. Gave me this hiding, right? Fuck. I thought, fuck, if ever there was a strategy, that fucking sucked, Dave, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something, he never touched me again. Now,
Dang.
in that moment, we teach people how to treat us. Now, that doesn't mean you go out and smack everyone that fucking bullies you. But I'll tell you something it stimulated me in the sense that first thing that I overcome was the physical. I then was committed to being the biggest, strongest motherfucker I could be. I would never want to be bullied again, but more importantly, I didn't want to become like him. So I went on a journey. I remember my first, I trained at Wesley College my last year there. I remember I attempted 60 kgs. I probably weighed 60 kgs. And I remember failing miserably, rolling it off. And here I am later in life. I've benched over 5 plates.
Jeez.
Fuck, man. But I was absolutely fucking committed to overcome it physically. Now, you got to appreciate, that's a young kid. It makes a lot of sense physically. But later on, I realized it wasn't physical. It's all in here. And it was a book given to me by the Reverend at our school called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I read that book, and I could relate to Jonathan and his story of being the best version of himself. He wanted to become the fastest seagull ever. And I'm like, fuck, I want to be the strongest. And I set the goal to be New Zealand's strongest man, right? Now, here's when we talk about contaminators and conviction. So I couldn't afford a gym. I'd left school I just turned 16, left school. I got no qualifications from school. So here I managed to buy some old weights in the back of my car. And so I'm out training one day, doing my thing. And a whole lot of guys I was hanging with, and I hung around with some fucking losers. These guys who are all on the piss and smoking deck and whatnot. And they said, "Oh, what are you doing, Niethe? You come and get on the piss." And I went, "Nah, mate, I'm training." He said, "Come on, man, come and get on the piss, And I said, "Nah, fuck off, man, I'm training." And all of a sudden, the guy said, "Oh, what are you training for?" And I said, "One day I'm going to be the strongest man in the country." Well, after that, they all started laughing and throwing fucking cans at me, and I fucking packed up and left. Never saw those fuckers again. So I would have been 16. I forget how many years later, I'm 23, 24. New Zealand's strongest man on TV. The first event's the heaviest truck pull, truck with 8 cars on it, car transporter, and I won that event. Now, I've never won New Zealand's strongest man, but I've led it. And you know what was interesting? That night, I got a phone call from one of those dudes saying, "Fuck, bro, I just watched you on TV. We all thought it was a joke, mate. You're the man." Fuck,
that's
just
crazy.
And again, that was the conviction. So then the next thing is right. So like Carl Jung said, where does fear lie? What's the next thing that I had to overcome? Well, I've got nothing from school and academia. So you can imagine, you do the NLP course and then you've got the exam and all that sort of shit. I honestly used to shit myself. But I knew the only way to overcome it was to face it, right? So that in public speaking, who the hell am I to talk on stage? Now, here's a beautiful story. So I just started talking. All right. I had an opportunity to go and talk in Las Vegas. On my journey into personal development, I came across, I think, one of the greatest motivational speakers of all time, a guy called Jim Rohn. And anyone who hasn't heard of Jim Rohn, you need to go and watch his stuff.
Yeah, amazing.
So I got to talk, and he was the guest speaker that night. And so I'm listening, my idol. And then afterwards, my wife and I were in the Stardust Hotel in Vegas. That was the last hotel to be blown up, right? So I'm sitting in the little booth having dinner with a mate and my wife. And I can tell you, before I went on stage to do that, right, and this is the power of having good support network around you. My wife is the best thing that ever happened to me. So I'm about to go on, and fuck, I don't want to, because Vegas, there's like 5,000. I've talked in front of 10 people, 20 people, but never that fuck. And I'm going to, oh, babe, I fucking can't go on stage. I'm sweating. I've sweat from I'm trying to find any fucking excuse to get out. And my wife knows me, so she was like, don't worry, sweat, I brought another shirt. Fuck, no excuse. Get your ass out there. So I went out there, and I was okay. I wasn't, fuck. And I have a style that's not everyone's cup of tea. I swear like a fucking trooper, mate. And, I don't care. It's just me, right? Yeah. So we're sitting there for dinner, and all of a sudden there's this hand on my shoulder, and I look up, and it's Jim Rohn. And he goes, son, I was quite impressed with you today. You got a bright future in this business. Yeah. Holy fuck, mate. Yeah. To be affirmed by an idol like that. And again, it's one of those moments that you don't anticipate. So I looked up and I said to Dump, I looked up and I went, oh, Jim, I love you. Oh, how embarrassing. He gets it all the time, I'm sure, right?
I know, yeah.
But for me, that was really special, mate. And I'll tell you something else that's important for people out there too. The biggest need of an individual fundamentally is to be affirmed and acknowledged. When I go out, I really want to put a smile on people's faces. You know what I mean? I like going to the gym and seeing these young kids there, and I'll watch them and go, mate, that's fantastic. I want to, because for me, you start creating this environment. There's nothing nicer than making people feel good, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, that's actually a big part of this podcast, man, because it's like, honestly, like when everyone's so focused on performance and results and commoditizing, people, then all of a sudden, we're losing track of let's just build people up. Let's just create an environment where people are able to perform their best.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes winning isn't about coming first. Winning sometimes is the fact you've overcome something. And I've talked on this in other podcasts. I talk about the importance of a coach is to be congruent. And that's something I'm really committed to. So I feel that, when someone comes into a session with me, one of the first things I'll say is, do you give me permission to be blunt and honest? Because in this world today, we're so easily triggered. And sometimes whether it feels uncomfortable or not, the reality is someone needs to be fucking honest with you. And I'm here as a mental performance coach. I'm not here to blow smoke up your ass. There are times when I've had clients, and I'm talking about some tough fucking men in tears, where I will fucking challenge them on their bullshit stories. And there is nothing worse. People say to me, well, you need all this shit to be a success in life. What a load of crap. In order to be a success in life, you need one thing, and that's 100 trillion cells. What are we all made up of? Fuck, there's your basis. Have you got, you might take you a while to count them all, but we can be pretty confident in saying if you're a conscious being, you've got fucking 100 trillion cells, right?
Yeah.
You've got everything you need right there and then to become whatever you fucking want. That's the beauty about life, man. We have free fucking will. We can be the creators of our future. And I think I'm a prime example. I've overcome it physically. And here I am now. I'm 55. And here's another story. So I've done different courses, but ultimately, the one thing that I knew I wanted to do that I just no way qualified was university. So here I am. I've been doing my joint degrees for the last 3 years part-time. And I remember the first time, again, you got to have courage, right? So where's fear lie? Well, academia. Fuck, I don't know about it. All I know is that from school, being constantly disappointed by teachers, right? Yeah. Mind you, to a certain point, I was that dick at the back of the class, chewing up paper and going,
class clown,
yeah. and then getting the cane, you know what I mean? That because I was just not stimulated. And I remember I said to the wife, "Look, I'm gonna do a degree. I'm currently doing a degree in philosophy and psychology."
Nice.
Now I jumped in, man. My first university course was justice and equality in philosophy. And I'm sitting there going, holy shit. Now I knew I'm going to have to work hard. I'm shitting myself. And I remember my first essay, submitting my first essay. And it was basically make or break. Because if I fucked up that first essay, I wasn't going to try. I was going to go, fuck it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sitting inside. And then you get this email, your paper has been marked. And immediately, mate, the anxiety, fuck, man, I'm so fucking nervous. And I said to the wife, I'm just going to go and check something, got some emails to do, babe, I'll just go in the office. So at night, the lights are on here. She can see in the office. And so I'm clicking on this fucking thing. And I got a B+. I have never got a B+ in anything ever. And I worked my ass off in that paper, right? Well, mate, I burst into tears. And my wife's in there. Now, I'm a fucking stoic, tough old prick, right?
Yeah.
Never see me cry. I'm the guy at the funeral talking and organising. Never see me cry. And so my wife's in there going, what the fuck? Someone's died or something. She came running out, and here I am going, I got a B+. And from there, mate, it's like, fuck, let's attack this shit, man.
Yes, yes.
It's the overcoming of that fear. That's the richest. And I've always said to people, the challenge is the gift. The frustration is the gift.
Yes, the pressure is a privilege.
Fucking embrace it. Fuck.
Yes. Yeah, you talked about in one of your other podcasts, time under tension, which I love because I used to bodybuild.
Yeah, man.
Time under tension is huge, but you referred to it a little bit differently. You want to explain that?
Well, that's where the gift can be created from. You never create change from comfort. It's like going to the gym and doing 30 pounds for bench press, for a set of 10. You are never fucking going to change. You get changed by challenge, by putting your body under a certain amount of pressure. And if you can learn to reframe that from being fearful to being, fuck, you know what, I'm going to be proud of the fact that I've looked it in the face and I am determined to kick it in its ass. That's a fucking great feeling, man.
Yes, that brings me to a couple of different points. You talked about being honest with yourself about maybe not being too good at something. Yeah, let's say public speaking. You're like, I'm a shitty public speaker. I need to work on public speaking. I have this narrative about public speaking is one of my worst qualities or whatever. And you talked about this idea of inserting affirmations into those while holding on to that honesty, but inserting affirmations. Like I love
bro.
that.
Yeah. So when I started this business, I had a wonderful coach, Clive, who is a master of affirmations. They have to be powerful, they need to be exciting, and they need to be in the present tense. That's really important because the brain only knows now, right? So I had these affirmations. One of them is, and I think everyone should have this one, I, and then your full name, am undoubtedly proud of myself. I think
that's powerful.
I am fucking proud of myself, man. For me, in the public speaking, I had an affirmation: everyone loves what I have to say. And for performance, I have this belief: in order for me to perform, I just have to show up. I don't need to have all my ducks in a row, mate. I don't have to have a perfect camp. I just have to fucking show up. Because what it does is that there is no excuses. So in order for me to perform, I just have to show up. Now, that's not dismissing the importance that I am a committed student, right? So this semester's fucking notes, man. I am working really fucking hard, but I have no doubt that I am going to pass this. Absolutely no doubt. And I know that for sure because of the fact that I am absolutely committed, determined, and disciplined to do the shit that I need to do to get it done. That was from early days in my training right through to academia today.
Yeah, that's crazy. Not a lot of people have that sense of strength in their belief systems, and I think that definitely comes down to self-image.
Well, it comes down, people seem to have this delusion that some people just have it, some people don't. I'm a prime example of someone who didn't have it, who now has it in abundance. Why? Because I had to work on it. Just like a fucking muscle, the brain needs exercise, man. You've got to be held to account.
That's something that's been huge for me is it's almost, I hate this term kind of, but this is the way that I kind of think about it sometimes. It's like you have to be delusional to an extent with your belief in yourself. It's a delusion of self-belief.
Well, think about this. What I teach with goal setting, right, is SMART test, and it's my SMART test. So number one, S stands for specific, right? The brain needs specificity. The next is sensory specific. So you've got to be able to visualize it in a sensory sense where you taste it, smell it, feel it, right? Then we have measurable, right? What are the measurables to get you there? Then A stands for accountable. To whom am I accountable to make this happen? Accountability will set you free, whether it's to yourself, your partner, or the people you love. Then R stands for realistic with the process. But you have to be unrealistic with the vision. Anything of any significance that was achieved in this world was by people that dreamed. The prime example is the Wright brothers. They owned a fucking bicycle shop, man. Now, if we were meant to fucking fly, we'd have feathers. That's what people told them. And look at us today. We fly everywhere. They had a vision. Man can fly. The last is T for timeline, deadline. There is nothing like a deadline to hold you to account. People that work without a deadline are open to procrastination. Put a deadline on shit.
So I would love to touch on the sensory specific aspect of that because I personally know how important that is from NLP, but I don't think that a lot of people understand the aspect of being sensory specific with the things that you're, dreaming of. And so I know that you kind of gave a couple other examples in your podcast. Israel Adesanya and his vision board, how you guys work together with developing that, obviously being something visual, but then linking that to sensory specific things. Or there was another one you gave with a guy in a boat and, coming up with his boat name. Like if you want to share the importance of sensory specific or what you mean by sensory specific, I guess.
So the simple thing here is any thought that I continuously hold in my mind will soon seek expression through some practical means, right? Now, what we also know is that the brain has no idea at a subconscious level of reality or time. It only knows now, right? So when you visualize and you're sensory specific, the brain thinks it's real. And that has a huge impact in the way that it starts to organize the neuroplasticity in your brain. You start creating neuro connections associated with that. So when I have my athletes visualize, part of what I'll do is a little bit of timeline therapy where I'll have them associated through their own eyes, but also observe themselves in the event. So what that allows is that I can both confirm a sense of undoubtable belief where when they're watching themselves in the event, they can see technically how they're operating and performing perfectly, right? So it could be in a fight, the guy throws a jab, you move and you counter, you visualize it because you're manufacturing this movie in your mind. Then I get them to float down and be in that moment where they take on all the feelings and associations. And so what that does, that multi-pronged attack, that dualistic approach, it absolutely compounds something powerful in the mind where they start coming out of it and going, mate, I know. When we talk about conviction, belief and imagination, combined with conviction and expectation, that's a recipe for a success.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's powerful, man. It's like absolutely convincing, not negotiable, no chance at all of any contamination because I absolutely fucking feel it, see it, and believe it.
Yeah, and I think that's important too because it can be very hard with I think that my clientele or crowd or avatar is a little bit more intellectual. And so generally speaking, it's very easy to imagine myself doing something. And it's very challenging to imagine what it would feel like to be doing that thing, to create, to kind of fill that memory full of what am I going to see? What am I going to smell? What am I going to taste?
Well,
touch,
you mentioned this.
What are the details?
When I talk about the alter ego, right? So the avatar, whatever, what I'll do is that sensory experience. It's easy to assume that because what happens is when you walk in there, you see it through that lens in such a way. Firstly, you associate it into it. So, Israel became the style bender. My alter ego was a 10,000 kg raging bull,
Nice.
but I was in control of it. So what you got to appreciate, if you're going into a competition, you know that you can leave the reality in the sense that if you had a choice between competing against me or a 10,000 raging bull, which one would you choose? Well, you choose me because you will die if you try and fight me.
Thanks.
Right? Yeah. And so what it does is when you combine that, everything gets intensified, and behind that there's a real sense of convincibility. You know how people try and convince themselves that they're confident? When you become that, there is no fucking scope for any contamination. When you truly imagine yourself as the style bender going into a fight with all his powers and ability, fear doesn't come into it. What comes into it is that probably guilt. Guilt in the sense it's not fucking fair I'm fighting that guy because they're fucked. Yeah. They have no chance. I have undoubtable belief in self. And when you're in that state, it's a lot easier to get calm and to see, when you're like your fighters will say, mate, it's like I'm half a second ahead of everyone. I can see and feel their movement, where they're going to go before they even it's just not fair. You could almost do it where you got someone and just said, hey, listen, think about, and this is an experiment that I'm going to be working on, but I've got to work on some stuff. But anyway, you get a kid and you go, think about, your strength, right? And being who you are, blah, blah, blah. And you do a strength test, right? And then you go back and you say, right, we're going to work on everyone getting into their alter ego. So what are you going to be? I'm going to be a lion. I'm going to be a shark. Fuck, I have alter egos of shark with some of my swimmers. It's like, fuck, man, everyone out of the pool because there's a predator going, right? And you can almost measure the change in the strength. Now, whether it's minuscule or significant doesn't fucking matter. The fact that they think that there is in of itself powerful. So the principle here is to disassociate and borrow resources. Act as if, you go into let's just say you were going to go into a gunfight. Now, you have two choices. You could go in there as a guy who has no freaking chance and no experience, or you could go in there and, being careful here, but let's just say you're Clint Eastwood.
Okay,
That guy was so fucking calm. You know what I mean? And actually, here's something that's really kind of interesting that Clint said in some of his movies. Oh, fuck, am I showing my age? And that is, a man's got to know his limitations. So you've got to acknowledge what those things are. For me, it was my belief around my intellect. And further, earlier than that, my belief around me in being able to protect myself. I was afraid of the hidings, but what I was more afraid of and what I didn't like was the fact that I gave my power away. That's what upset me. I didn't ever want to be fearful. I wanted to be fearless. And it's something that I've now, when you overcome that, when you get to that point, that is when you can start truly commanding and inspiring others. It's when I talked about being congruent.
Yeah, I can only imagine the amount of work that you must have done and continue to do around this, because that's what NLP says. It's like you can only take people as deep as you're willing to go. And so I knew that from the very beginning. It's like, well, I'm not very in touch with my feelings. So I'm not very in touch and self-aware with the things that I'm doing that are, limiting in many ways. And so obviously I've got a lot of work to do myself, and that's been my own, grind over the past, let's say 4 years. I just got my degree recently. It's right behind me here.
Well, congratulations, bro. Awesome.
Thank you. I'm working on my master's now.
Masters is where it's at. That's where the gold is, mate. Seriously, got to do your masters.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I want to kind of hit it from both fronts, because it's like you can read a bunch of books, you can have all this knowledge, bunch of certifications, but I just feel like the degree just has a little bit of a different, credibility in this world. I almost wish it didn't, but I think it does, and I think that's the place I'd like to be in, is that dualistic approach of,
I agree,
things,
mate.
The woo woo and everything that everyone wants to say. Plus, it's like, no, I've got a very firm foothold in reality here, so don't get me twisted.
I think there's three components to this. One is knowledge. And I think it's very important that you educate yourself, right? The 3 steps to greatness Jim Rohn talked about. Number 1, set goals. And we've discussed that in today's podcast, how to do that. 2, educate yourself. And 3, have a financial plan. Okay. Now, the financial plan will probably come a little bit later in life while you're establishing yourself. But, the first part is knowledge. And then that's combined with experience. And that takes years. But here's the magic, is that you get to a point with these things continue to grow, that you start implementing the third thing, which is wisdom. When you start really becoming wise, that's when you can elicit change in people. Like I have had people where people say to me, how long does it take to make change? Mate, I have had people come and see me that in less than 5 minutes, they are going, what the fuck? You know, the amount of times some people have gone, fuck, that's exactly how I've been feeling. How the fuck do you know that? Now, that's knowledge and that's experience. But 30 years of coaching, it's that little bit of wisdom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can get to the point quicker.
Yeah, hitting the nail right on the head.
Oh, bro, honestly, man, it's and you can do that with complete fucking strangers in a moment where you will say something that goes so deep, you can look on their face going, what the fuck was that? Holy shit. You know, I do it all the time.
I assume like a big part of that too is like, you know, your awareness of language, I would say, you know, not to like, you know, get too technical with it, but it's like when you hear people talk, you know, you can very quickly spot that language and call them out for things, and that's where the narrative lies, right?
Yes.
And so I think that you've got to be incredibly, you know, wise with that, you know, bit of information, you know.
Well, you know, one of the most important things, mate, is to mind your language. You know, perception is projection, as we've talked about, as you know. You know, our model of the world is combined with our beliefs, our language, our perceptions. It's a bit like winter. Some people in winter bitch and moan about the cold, other people ski.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I did want to touch on another thing real quick. So, you talk about in some of your, you know, other talks, about how when you show up, let's just say a fight, let's say a public speech, whatever it is, you know, I'm focusing on public speaking because that's the realm that I'm trying to head into. Whatever work you've done technically is already done, you know, whatever work you've done physically is already done, you know, and so really the place to focus is on the mindset in that place. So would you be willing to talk about that for a second and how you really help focus on that with people?
In the context of when I go on stage to do a public speak, or what?
No, so how you get people to realize essentially that all the physical work they've already done, you know, they've read the books that they're going to read, they've done the work they're going to do already. Like now once you show up, the only thing you can really control is your mind, right?
Yeah, well, I suppose that really goes back to what we were discussing earlier and being congruent. So you can read all the books you want, but fundamentally, you know, have you got a vision? Have you got a plan? Are you congruent? Are you talking the talk and walking the walk?
Yeah, and are you able to really bring that stuff to the surface, or is your mind blocking? Are you getting too nervous?
Yeah,
because if you've read a bunch of books and you don't know how to speak on stage because you get too stressed, because you're not able to potentially give yourself an affirmation, because you're maybe not potentially able to reframe this distress into eustress, right?
Yeah. And again, it's about being fucking honest with yourself. You know, how do I prepare? I'll tell you how I prepare for a seminar. And I'm reluctant to share it because obviously it's going to make a massive impact in a positive way, because it's like trade secret. But I'm prepared to share it with people. And I think it's the most incredible thing. And probably the one secret that you just probably not told. But how I prepare is I show up.
Just show up.
Bro, I've been running seminars for 30 years. I have no idea what the fuck I'm going to talk about until I hop on the stage. But I trust that I've got all the knowledge behind me. I will basically make it up as I go based on the response and the requirement in that environment at that time.
God, that's got to be such a good feeling, because that's
Mate,
that's
the
point I would love to get to. I'm over here like trying to outline and then detail and do this, and I'm like, okay, now we're saying too many words, and I'm getting overthinking everything. You know, I love to hear that. That's the frame of reference that I need.
I just show up. Honestly, we talked about, you send a little script and saying key areas. I didn't even read it. I just trust. I just trust that, you know, the affirmation, everyone loves what I have to say. Now, not everyone loves what I have to say, but those that don't, I couldn't give a fuck about.
Right.
Because I know what I share is, if applied and taken on board, without a doubt is going to make a difference, man. How can it contaminate someone's life? So I feel very comfortable in knowing that, all my, it's the challenge and the struggle. The one thing I can say that I'm proud of is that I'm congruent. I'm going to ask you to do things, but I tell you, I've done it myself. I've been through it. I know what it's like to overcome limiting beliefs. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's far more powerful than some, and I'll say this respectfully, but you get fuckers today that read one book or they do one thing and immediately they're telling everyone how to suck fucking eggs. Mate, I think I want a coach who's been through some challenges. I want a coach who is congruent, that is talking the talk. I pride myself on this, my friend. I have never, ever, ever advertised my business. All my work comes from referral, and it has been for over 30 years.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, you're doing something right then, for sure. You got other people terrified that they can't market themselves good enough.
I think anyone that has to continuously market themselves needs to have a fucking good look at themselves and ask, why aren't people referring? Why aren't people talking about me to other people when I'm not there?
Yeah, that's very, very true. If you're not providing that quality service, if you're not able to give them that experience to really see them for who they are.
Yeah, absolutely,
you're not going to get that. Wow.
Yeah.
Neither one of us like to use the word failure. I think I learned it as feedback in my NLP course. I've heard you call it learnings. So I kind of want to, finish up. Yeah. There is no failure. There's only feedback is how I learned it, but either way, it's the same thing. And so the idea is like, if someone is a little bit scared to move forward, scared that they don't have it together, obviously there's a lot of work that goes into this. There's a lot of things. There's self-awareness, there's the reframings, there's affirmations, there's all these things. And so if someone's in the process of beginning something that's very challenging, that's failing, like let's even take you as an example of what if you would have not done that great on that paper? Like, would you have genuinely quit, or would you have continued on and reframed it in some way?
Mate, I tell you what, I say I would have quit, but there was no way that was going to happen, because there was no way I was going to fail the paper, because I was absolutely committed in the first place. The most important thing, if you truly want to achieve greatness and happiness in your life, you must have a tenacious resolve. I will go until, I truly believe in that Viking mentality. So the Vikings would load their boats, their children, their wives, the family, the stock, the goats. They go to a new land. They put everything on the beach. And you know what they do with the boat? Burn it.
Burn it. Burn the boat.
No turning back, man. So that's a tenacious resolve, man. Like, fuck it. Here's the thing. Here's a little note that I have on my computer. A+ is most like me. Commit.
Yes.
Now, I have only received 1A. I'm pretty much a B+ kind of guy, B- guy, right? I am absolutely committed to being an A+ student, right? Now, if I fall short, I'm not going to beat myself up, because what I know is that I've done all that I possibly can, and not being deluded about that. Some people are very good at being honestly deluded about their commitment. But, a prime example is, my boy gets up to go and play golf early on a Sunday, and he always says, 6:30 on a Sunday, Dad's in the office studying, and I will do a whole day of study. I've got so much else on. I have to manage my time effectively. But one thing I won't do, and that is make a fucking excuse. No excuses. Take responsibility. We talked about or and bed, above the line and below the line. Above the line, ownership, accountability, and responsibility. That is only fucking the 5% is will live up there. Below the line, blame, excuse, and denial. That's where 95% of fucking losers and idiots fucking exist. Unfortunately, in this world, they also vote. Seriously, I think people, I'm a true believer in, I'm not huge on altruism. I am very much the ego psychologically inclined individual. I believe in personal responsibility. I believe in, firstly, the responsibility starts with you before you can start dictating about, what's happening out there in the world. I think today,
get your own house in order.
Everyone's got so much to say about other shit and they haven't got their own shit together.
Yep,
like
absolutely.
One of your, I think it was one of your military admirals said, learn how to make your bed. The first thing I do in the morning is I make the bed before I
start your day with a win. What's that mean to you?
Discipline.
Does it feel good, or does it look like, what is it? Because I mean, it's for no one else but for yourself, obviously.
It's just something that I don't have to do. I could leave it. No one's going to fucking know. But what did I say was really important for me as a coach is that I'm congruent. I have no right to tell you how to suck fucking eggs if I can't honestly put hand on heart and say that I act that way too. Now, I'm not saying I'm fucking perfect. Believe me, I can get pissed off with people, and I do have a little anger problem from time to time, and I have to work on that. But fundamentally, most of the time, I've got to say I am absolutely congruent with what I say and what I do.
That's crazy.
I think
that can't be, and sometimes it can't be easy, I'm sure.
If it becomes habitual, it's not an issue, is it?
True.
Like I said, we spend more time and effort in creating creative excuses. Excuses won't go away, mate. They will come back and fester the self-image. So stop making excuses.
So that's probably one of the excuses, blame, denial being two of the things that you can probably very easily spot in people's language, along with other words and stuff.
Well, I see it within seconds, and it's at that point. Like you can see, I'm incredibly aware of it everywhere I go, and I have certain real basic values. I have a particular place that I like to go. Normally on a Friday morning, I have breakfast of champions, and I sit down with like-minded, positive individuals, all sorts of people,
nice.
right? Yeah, every Friday cafe, same spot. It's got a sign up the Dave spot. You can't fucking sit there because the big guy's coming in.
Nice.
But as I said earlier, one of the biggest needs of an individual is to be affirmed and acknowledged. I will always, and my kids have been taught this, always acknowledge the people that have served. So I will go out and thank the the chef, the staff. I appreciate them. It costs nothing to do that, and it means the world to people, man.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I actually bartend right now full time, so it's like those people are rare. Those people are rare. They really see you as a person, really acknowledge you, really affirm you.
That feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they want that back. They want that from you. They want to be acknowledged. They want affirmation. They want to be respected. And then all of a sudden they struggle to do it themselves. And so that's where the congruency comes in.
It costs you nothing but a little bit of focused attention.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I want to wrap it up here, but I love the fact that you're doing philosophy right now. I've been studying philosophy since I was 17. I'm 33 now. I read Nietzsche in high school. Very into all this stuff. I have, I think, about 6 of his books behind me.
Yes, I've got.
So the idea of the Ubermensch, incredibly interesting to me. So this may be a little bit of a vague question, but hopefully you can, rap on this, freestyle on this. Just if someone's trying to be Ubermensch, someone's just trying to be the absolute best they can, starting from square one. Maybe they don't have a vision yet. They just want to improve themselves. Like, what are some basic? Where do they start?
Well, I would say that anyone that wants to create the Ubermensch who's listened to this podcast can listen to the podcast, because everything we've talked about, the recipe to become the Ubermensch, is contained in what was discussed today.
Good. That's what I love to hear. That's what we were trying to get to. We're trying to get to that point. We're trying to help people evolve their potential,
Absolutely.
getting into the next level, getting over the limiting beliefs, getting over the self-doubt, really being honest with ourselves, congruent with the things that we say and the things that we want, being clear with that vision, not letting things contaminate and focusing on the things that contribute to that. Yes.
That is you becoming the Ubermensch.
Yes.
You're becoming the best possible version of you. Yeah. And when you become congruent, it's then you become the Ubermensch.
I love that. And I love what you're doing. And I love that you're a part of being a integral piece of people's lives that are able to kind of like, remove, if you will, like the Superman shirt, pull open the shirt and really unveil what's underneath, get rid of that rust on top of the golden Buddha, I just love what you're doing.
We all have that in us. What do we need? 100 trillion cells, bro. Yes, we all have an Ubermensch itching to get out.
I love that. And I want to acknowledge and affirm you for what you're doing and the work that you have put into this and becoming who you are. And I definitely want to stay connected and continue to move myself forward in this field. And I think that you'll be an integral part of, having that connection, and having this conversation has been amazing for me, and hopefully it can be amazing for, the viewers as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, bud.
Oh, absolutely, man. We will connect soon. Okay. And thank you so much for joining, man.
Okay, man. See you, buddy.
All right. Take care, David.